All right. So today starts the next couple lessons are lessons that are really important. They're really important because I keep mentioning that Greece is like our father or our grandfather, has given us a lot of the tools that we need to be successful. Um, there's two sides to that. Like I mentioned, the Greek city-states were all very individual, had their own policies, their laws, um, how women or men were portrayed in society. It was all different from city to city. Um, but the combination of Sparta, which we will study today, and Athens, which we will study tomorrow, the combination of those two kind of gave us the foundation we have as a country today. So if we're talking about Sparta, I have this lovely picture right here of Leonidas from the movie 300. Just quickly, guys, what do you know about Sparta? What can you tell me? Anything about it?
Very war affiliated.
Yes, they were war crazy. You're correct. What else do you guys know about them? Anything? Yes.
They use the form of government that starts with the oligarchy.
Okay, oligarchy. Yeah, we're going to talk about their form of government today. Very unique at this time, their form of government, how exactly they did it. That's great. So far, so good. What else? Anything else? Very warlike, had an oligarchy as a form of government. Anything else? Oh, that's all right. Has anybody seen this film? All right, guys, so if you've seen this film, what can you tell me about this film? Give me a quick rundown of what happens.
I didn't really follow the plot much. I just know there was a lot of fighting.
That is true. That is true. Do you remember who they're fighting? Another famous civilization. Sorry?
The Romans?
Not the Romans. That's later down the line. Starts with a P. There's a type of.
Is it like the name of the war?
Not the name of the war. This is the name of the civilization that's going against Greece in this film. Starts with a P. Is there anything that has a name in it? Nowadays, it's Iran. But at this time, it was the Empire of Persia. So Persia is against Sparta and Greece in the film 300. Why is the film called 300? Why is it called 300?
How many soldiers are there?
Yes, there are 300 soldiers. Perfect. Yes, that is why it is called 300, the film. The battle we will talk about later on is called the Battle of Thermopylae. And yes, this movie definitely glorifies what happened. The movie is called 300. There was definitely more than 300 people, right? Definitely. The Spartans were joined by other city-states who were all trying to stop the Persians from taking over all of Greece. So there is a lot of historical inaccuracies in this. If you remember this movie, the Spartans is like 300 men, 8,000 abs, right? And the people that they're fighting against, do they look like people or do they look like monsters? They look like monsters, right? Well, that's not really good. That is an example. I'll put it right here on the board. I have to write it. That is an example of historical bias, where the people who write history or write the books make their side look way better than the other side, right? In this film, of course, the Spartans are noble and strong and super handsome and all of that, right? But of course, the people they're fighting look like monsters and look weird, right? That's historical bias. In my opinion, the Persians who are trying to take over Greece were actually more civilized than the Spartans. You're going to read a lot about that. Personally speaking, I am not a huge fan of Sparta or the Spartans, although lots of history fans are. I don't really like how they treated people. And we're going to learn a lot about that today. Let's go to the next part. Oops. Or not. Okay, great. So the first word on the board, Peloponnesus, that is this blue area right here. So this is the area Sparta controls. The city of Sparta is right over here, but this is the peninsula they lived on. Once again, what's a peninsula?
Like surrounded by water.
Good, surrounded by water, but that would be an island, right? So there's one little variation.
It's connected.
Sorry? 3 sides. It's surrounded by water on 3 sides. Correct. If you look here, this is the one little part that doesn't make it an island, right? This is important to know because lots of wars will happen here, right? And this is their area of control. So what do you notice about the pottery next to this map? Just first impressions, what does it look like? Or what's going on here?
Well, it kind of looks like the same guy.
Yeah, you're correct. They do look really similar. That's true.
Has people on it.
Yeah, that's true.
He's on like a leash.
Yeah, exactly. If he's on a leash, what could his status be?
Slave.
Yeah, you're right. This is a slave, right? That is a huge part of Spartan society is slavery, right? That is why I am not a fan of Sparta. And the important thing to know is if we look on the board again, I have a word called Dorians, right? So the thing to remember is that Spartans were a group of people called the Dorians who came from here, came from northern Greece and migrated into the Peloponnesian Peninsula, right? So there's going to be a big problem with that. Right. The big problem being is this group of people called the Dorians from northern Greece moved down into the Peloponnesian Peninsula. And what do you think they do to the local people?
Annoy them.
Make them slaves, right? So this group of people comes from the north. They take all of the local people and turn them into slaves. They were called helots, which is the third word on the board.
The slaves were called helots?
Yes. Helots, helots. It's like tomato, whichever one you prefer is fine with me, as long as you know it. So yes, we talked about the Minoans and the Mycenaeans. It's kind of similar. An outside group comes in and takes over. Only this time, this group, instead of just taking over and taking some of their nice ideas and some of their writing styles, they're like, nah, screw it, you're a slave. So not great for them at all. Now, I'm not sure how many Greek films or movies or stories about Greece. Do you ever see anything about slavery?
No.
Never. They never show it, okay? This is another example of historical bias. If the Greeks are our grandfathers and gave us so much, do we want to show them as slave owners? Nah, it doesn't make us look good, right? So that's a big problem. That's a very, very big problem. And all these films, all these movies, they just wash right over it like it didn't exist or it didn't happen. And it totally happens. Now, this group of people, the helots, let's learn a little bit about their position in society. It was not good at all. So the local population of helots outnumber the Spartan population 7-1. So that's kind of surprising, right? And we're unsure if they're an ethnic group or a social class. We know that that's the term that they were given. We know that the Spartans called them helots, but we're not sure if that was their ethnic group or just their word for slave. They're mostly farmers who farmed to Sparta. Helots were beaten, humiliated, and even hunted down once a year to train young soldiers. For example, if you're a farmer and you're big and strong, are you going to be a better farmer?
Yes.
Yeah. But guess what? The Spartans are probably going to kill you first. Because if there's a war and you rise up, you don't want the big, strong guys being alive, do you? So they would just get beaten at random. They could get killed at random. They had no rights at all. And uprisings were a common threat, right? Remember, they outnumber them 7-1. And the last part is pretty humiliating. They were forced to wear dog skin hats, special clothing, and receive regular beatings each month to reinforce that they were slaves. Whoa, 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 whoa. You can't have too good of a life. Put that hat on, we're gonna beat you. Not great for them. Once again, this is a big reason why I'm not a fan of Spartans. So we know their position, which is almost nothing, right? They don't really have any freedom. They can get killed at will. They have to get beat pretty regularly so they can be reminded that they're a slave. Yeah, not good treatment, I would say. So this is an important part. This is something that I would definitely remember. We're going to go over this for your homework. I'm going to have some reading for you. But this is the Spartan social structure. So, if you're a Spartan, you are born into or adopted by a Spartan family. So you're one of the top classes, all right? You can have office, so you could be in politics, and you can vote. Pretty good if you're in the top, right? You could own land, and you had to pay some community fee, so like a tax. And guess what your job is? Any guesses?
None. Like being a soldier or something?
You're a soldier. That's your only job. Yep. If you are in this top class, you are a soldier. Yes. Of course you can. Now, you're going to learn about this through the reading, but all men were full-time soldiers. What happened if you were born and maybe not like a club foot or club leg? Do you know what I mean? Like,
what if they like throw over a hill or something?
Yeah, they'd kill you. Yep. So when a baby was born or a child was born, if it had any type of physical problem, for example, one foot was way bigger than the other, or one arm was not fully formed, so it was tinier, you're dead. Right? The child just dies. So if you're a man and you're born into this class and you're a healthy baby, things wouldn't be overly bad for you. Yes, you got to be a soldier all the time, but they didn't know any better, right? That was their culture. The next class we have is, oh man, I can never pronounce this. Karaoke. I can't pronounce it. We're just going to call it the P class. All right, this middle class didn't have Spartan parents, right? Or was untrained. You had legal protection, right? The law was on your side, so to speak. But you're not able to have any land or vote. So the law protects you, but you have no say in the government. And most of these people were merchants or artisans. So artisan would be a high quality type of crafting person. So an artisan could be making a special type of bread, special type of wine, tapestry, clothing, something like that. So even here, if you're in the middle, it's still not terrible, right? Still not terrible. Sure, you don't get a political voice and you can't own land, but the law protects you. So that is the middle class. In the last class, what we've talked about was helots. They're born as slaves, right? Descended from the first people of the region, severely oppressed, worked the land and supported their families, could own some personal property. But once again, the last one, could own some personal property. Yes, you could. And then all of a sudden, some kid runs around, he's trained to be a Spartan and just murders you. So it's a freedom, but it's a very, very small one in the grand scheme of things.
Were they allowed to like fight back?
Nope. Nope. Just had to deal with it, which is kind of bad because dealing with it means you're dying, right?
You're probably not very fast.
We'll see. That's actually kind of an interesting part. Another kind of interesting aspect is there were kind of secret police in Sparta. And these were Spartans who would act or dress like helots and hang out with them, trying to learn if they were going to rise up, or if they were saying things they shouldn't say. So they didn't really have a great life. They had to be worried about people listening to what they're saying. They could get murdered pretty quickly, and your best friend could be a spy. You don't know. So this is the Spartan social structure. Alrighty, so now what I would like you to do with the person next to you. Awesome. On a piece of paper,
Like everything on this book, or
just a notebook. Just because you're going to work together, it's easier to have two. What I would like you to do on a piece of paper, it doesn't need to be overly big or complicated. I would like you I want you to make a triangle like that. You just need one of them, just one triangle. But work together, guys. So I know you're not thinking that much. Maybe just Hoover and Hidden. What I would like you to do, this is to kind of see how you feel about it. Okay, what I would like you to do, make one of these about our country. How do you think our country is divided up? Right? Remember, work together. You guys could have all different ideas. So do that. I'm going to give you, I'm going to time it. I'm going to give you like 3 to 4 minutes. I'm going to make one as well. And then I'm going to go around and ask what you have.
Okay. So we should do the 3 like classes. Yeah. Oh, well, it is, but we're not going to use the controller. Oh, okay.
Oh, that's a good one.
Oh, like people who came from like country that don't have like a green card or anything, like immigrants.
Yeah, my wife would be in that category. Like she lives here, but she can't work, can't get a driving license, can't vote, can't do anything really. I don't know. It depends. We've got. Do you think our country really loves China right now?
No.
Yeah, that's. Do you think our?
So it's not there like on the computers like trying to get it.
Well, let's put it this way. Also, do you think our current president likes non-Americans? So it's not easy. I mean, we're trying. We're still waiting. Just all the papers to go through. But we have for like a year, and she hasn't been able to work.
Right. Yeah.
I'm sure you can know. What if you like no good paying jobs? That was the job. We put decent pay. Like minimum wage, like middle class. I mean, we're gonna get poverty. Put middle class in there.
All right, so what we're gonna do now, we're just gonna go over some of them quickly. I just want to know how you guys feel. I did one really quick. I don't know, from my experience, I think this is what I think, and it's really sad that I think this, because I wish our country wasn't like this. But I tend to put LGBTQ, people with mental illness, illegal immigrants or immigrants, people of color, poor people, they're kind of at the bottom of our society. It drives me absolutely mental, makes me so angry that is true in my opinion. But that is how I feel. I think university graduates are in the middle. Okay, I know in Maine we use this word dink, like as a like don't be a dink or whatever, but it also means double income, no kids. So what I mean is two people who have a good job but don't have kids. They tend to have more money, right? Because they're not spending it on children, right? For example, if you look at like the income of gay and lesbian couples, they tend to be quite high because sometimes our country doesn't let them adopt kids, for example, right? So they have two good incomes, but they don't have kids to spend it on. And then I wrote white people are WASP. WASP means white, Anglo-Saxon, Protestant. It means Christians whose families came from Europe a long time ago, right? Like English people, Irish people, French people. I said companies and wealthy people. I think wealthy people, I think they're the king at the top of our little triangle. What do you guys think? What did you have at the bottom of your triangle?
Most of the stuff like that.
Most of that?
We also had like poverty levels, like poor,
Yep.
and we also had like look different, like different races and stuff.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no doubt. What do you guys have at the bottom? Yeah, mostly the same. What about you guys?
Homeless people and like
Yeah, I didn't think about that. That's a great one. Homeless people, Native American side. Yeah. Who did you guys have at the top?
wealthy white people.
Wealthy white people,
We
sure.
also did like government affiliated.
Yep, people work in the government or something, sure. Anything else? What did you guys have at the top? Military. Okay, sure. They get a lot of respect in them, no doubt.
For military, I put them in the middle because my stepdad worked in the military and they're not paid well.
Yeah, true.
So
True.
I see them as like, I don't think they're like prioritized, but like, and given like recognition, but.
Yeah, they'll
You
always,
know what I mean?
people go on about supporting our troops, but they could be supported a lot better if we gave them more money.
Yeah.
You get what I mean? Like, yeah, I totally agree with you on that one. Awesome. So this is Spartan society. So if Spartan society is like this, what do you think their government's going to be like?
All made of men.
Yeah, it's going to be open. No. Okay, so let's have a look because this is a big part. Okay, you're right. They did have an oligarchy. It's a government run by the few. So here we have the different branches of their government, right? They have two kings, right, who led Spartans into battle. They have two kings plus 28 other men over the age of 60, right? So these men are retired soldiers, right? And because they are over 60, they probably have, they probably are a bit famous, right? They're probably known for being great soldiers because, yeah, there's only 28 of them, right? So not only do you have to be over 60, but there's probably more than 28 in their civilization, right? So it means you'd probably have to do something noteworthy. They would decide on issues, right? For example, do we go to war with Athens? Do we help out Athens? Do we fight the Persians, right? They discuss that. And it's presented to the assembly. So it was made up of male citizens. So you had to be a Spartan. If you're a helot or the P class, sorry, I always forget how to say it. You're not, right? Made up of male citizens. You did not debate. You only voted. So if you want to put it all together, there's 30 people, 28 men, plus the two kings, who are going to debate and talk about issues. So we're debating, we come to the assembly and you guys are in the assembly. You only get to raise your hand or say yes or no. You do not get to debate or talk about it. And at the very bottom, you have the 5 ephors, elected each year, responsible for the education of the youth and the conduct of all citizens. So you're making sure children get the education they need, and you're also making sure people are following the rules and obeying the law. So the biggest takeaway from Sparta is not their government style. Because yes, it was unique, but it didn't really follow them. There weren't other countries or other city-states taking their form of government. But there were city-states taking their style of military, right? How they train their citizens. So how much time do we have? Do we have enough time? Perfect. Okay, so time is creeping up on us. So the next thing I want to do is I'm going to present a little video. And this kind of explains the day-to-day interaction of Spartan society. How to say it? It describes it better than I could. That is for sure. Also, this video site or this channel on YouTube has some really, really great stuff if you're interested in history. So we are going to watch this short video. I'm going to put subtitles at the bottom. Are you guys okay with that, or do you want the subtitles gone? Yeah, I think it's a little bit more useful. Sometimes there are different words. You can put the words with a name. So here we are.
Modern Western civilization can trace its roots to ancient Greece, with the foundations for military and government systems drawn from two of the most legendary city-states to ever exist, Athens and Sparta. Athens would inspire Western civilization to rule fairly and espouse democratic ideals, while Sparta would form the backbone of military tradition meant to defend that democracy. Well, what was life really like in ancient Sparta? Hello and welcome to another episode of the Infographic Show. Today we're asking, what was life like for a Spartan warrior? Spartan society was, well, Spartan. It was a civilization that eschewed luxury and comfort. It favored for discipline, precision, and obedience. Its men and women were fully dedicated to the Spartan military, with almost the entirety of their efforts spent every day in supporting or strengthening Sparta's ability to wage war. Spartan citizens weren't even allowed to engage in trading, and coins were outlawed. Every free citizen was equal. There was no gender or wealth gap, as engaging in trade or even making clothing and farming was seen as work only fit for slaves to do. There was no 1%, as there was no interest in amassing wealth. Sadly, there was also little interest in the arts, science, or philosophy, unless it served the military. A Spartan soldier's life began at birth, with the child inspected and discarded if found to be physically or mentally handicapped in any way. When a child reached age 5, they would be inspected once more and killed if found to be too unhealthy. Sparta had no room for the weak. At age 7, male children were taken to a local aggregate, a sort of military academy food chain. From that moment on, a Spartan child no longer belonged to his parents, but rather to the state as a whole. At the aggregate, Spartan children were purposely underfed and encouraged to steal food, only to be severely beaten if they were caught. But not because stealing was wrong, but because they were in fact caught. This was meant to teach them to be stealthy and crafty, but also to endure hunger, as they may have to in the midst of a long campaign. You didn't have to be caught doing anything wrong in order to earn a beating, though, as part of a Spartan child's training in becoming a soldier included routine and random beatings meant to ensure they grew up tough. Living in groups under the tutelage of an older man, boys were encouraged to fight amongst themselves to determine.
Sorry, it said they're under the teaching of an older man, right? One thing you're gonna notice in Greek society is these older men had relationships with these boys as well. It's more common in Athens, but it's also common here in Sparta. The word pedophile comes from a Greek word around this time. So yeah, kind of gross.
Determine who was the strongest, although they were strictly taught to never fight each other in anger or hold grudges. This too was purely pragmatic rather than philosophical, as it ensured that morale stayed good among soldiers fighting side by side. Spartan children were not given beds to sleep on, but instead had to make their
I should really get ad blocker.
own from tough reeds pulled from riverbanks by hand, and forget about sheets or blankets. At age 12, they were given only a single item of clothing a year, a red cloak, and would not earn shoes until graduating into military service, going barefoot even in the middle of winter. This would prepare Spartan soldiers for the reality of life on the campaign trail, as Spartans did not carry sleeping cots, tents, or even blankets with them as they marched, sleeping on the ground itself, wrapped only in their clothes. At age 12, a Spartan child was put under the tutelage of an older soldier in a sort of mentor relationship. Although many Greeks often made claims about pederasty in Spartan society, this one-on-one relationship was meant to pass on knowledge and experience, as well as build loyalty between soldiers, and from the young child to the state. At age 18, a Spartan youth would then be initiated into adulthood through a practice called the Krypteia, a ritual seen as barbaric and brutal by the rest of the civilized world. During the Krypteia, Spartan teenagers formed into small groups and were tasked with murdering a number of slaves. Sometimes blades were provided, other times they were left to fend for themselves and improvise weapons or murder with their bare hands. The teenagers would then look for the largest and strongest of slaves and ambush the slave when unawares. Weak slaves or female slaves were rarely targeted, as they were not seen as a great threat, and thus it was the biggest and strongest who were at risk of being murdered. Though participants in the Krypteia could be punished with beatings if caught, the beatings were punishments not for the murder, but for actually being caught. Slaves had no rights or protection, and in fact, every year the ruling Spartan body would declare war on their slaves, so their murder was not seen as a murder, but rather as a casualty in an ongoing war. Considering that Spartans relied completely on their slaves for everything from sewing their clothes to trading with the other city-states, it may seem insane that murder of their own slaves was encouraged and even mandated, but for all their warrior might, Spartans lived in constant fear of their slave population. Out outnumbering normal Spartans 7-1. Spartans were all too aware that a revolt could be devastating to the city-state. And in fact, it very nearly ended the Spartan rule around 490 BC, when slaves revolted and nearly overthrew the Spartan government. From that day on, Spartans kept a very tight leash on their slaves, and once even put wreaths on the heads of 2,000 of their strongest slaves, and promised them their freedom, only to lead them away to a temple and slaughter them all. At age 20, Spartans officially became part of the army, but they were not allowed to marry and live together in barracks until the age of 30. During this time, they also competed fiercely with each other for entry into the Spartan Campaigns, a royal guard of honor, of which only 300 of the best warriors would be chosen to accompany the king. Also at age 20, Spartans were voted into one of several public messes, with votes cast by members of those messes. Think of it as pledging to a fraternity the way college students do today, only with far less partying and drinking, as most Spartans did not drink alcohol and were warned against it from childhood. For Spartans, alcohol and any other substance that incapacitated you was seen as building weakness, and slaves would often be forced to get drunk on alcohol and then be publicly humiliated so that Spartan children could see the dangers of drinking. Votes for entry into a mess had to be unanimous, and this would build a strong camaraderie between the members of that mess and ensure cohesiveness of battle. Spartans had until the age of 30 to gain entry into a mess, after which if they still had not gained entry, they would be denied full Spartan citizenship, which means they were not allowed to vote or hold office. Upon joining the army at age 20, Spartans broke day and night in battle formations. Spartan armies made the use of the dreaded phalanx formation, in which rows of soldiers would be stacked one after the other, with each soldier's shield protecting the right flank of the man next to him. This created an impenetrable wall of bronze bristling with spear points that was nearly impossible to defeat as long as it held its cohesiveness. Yet, as powerful as the phalanx was, if discipline failed for even a second, and the armed would force an opening, the entire formation would shatter, leaving soldiers vulnerable and exposed. This, in essence, was the entire point of Spartan training. The phalanx must never break. And in fact, Spartan phalanxes hardly ever did. With row after row of soldiers, each Spartan would push his shield into the back of the man in front of him, pushing the entire formation forward and pressing into the enemy. Those on the first 3 or 4 ranks would stab out with their spears or hurl them at the enemy. And if injured or cut down, the man behind would immediately take their place. A living tank of bronze, leather, and human muscle. The Greek phalanx was a thing to be greatly feared, as the Persians would learn, and few were more formidable than those made up of Spartan men. Spartan society revolved entirely around their military might, and their adult life from ages 7 to 60 was devoted entirely to training and fight. While not at war, Spartans spent every waking moment training and drilling, honing themselves for future battles. The ancient Greek historian Plutarch commented that for Spartans, war was seen as almost a holiday, saying their bodily exercises were less rigorous during their campaigns, and they were allowed a regimen less rigid. They were the
Alrighty, so I hope you enjoyed. It's pretty crazy the lifestyle they lived, right? And how little rights the other people had. After school today, I will post your assignment. It is not due tomorrow because I didn't post it yet. So I'll give you some extra time because that's my bad for not posting it yet. But just have a look out. It'll probably be on there. And that's it. Have a great day, guys. See you later, guys.